Three, two, one.
Hi, hello. Welcome. This is episode 41. I'm Hermes, and this is yet another expat, the podcast that brings news, thoughts, and stories, I guess. We have 1,000 listens in this podcast. This is the first piece of news I'll bring. It is not a big milestone for most, but for this endeavor, I think it's a pretty cool one to reach. 1 year in, 41 episodes in. Now you can do the math and understand how special you are if you are a listener of this podcast. Like I said before, this means that you can't control the course of this podcast with your feedback, your thoughts, and whatever. You are a pristine listener as the numbers are growing. But that's the milestone. Thank you for sticking around and giving it a chance. I actually got to check some of the first episodes and oh my god, they're bad. The pace is slow, the editing is bad. So perhaps I need to go and re-edit them, as that is the first way someone gets to start. I have the episode titles with 1, 2, 3, 4, and that does help, but it also makes people with OCD want to start from the beginning. I think the beginning is it's a humble one. If you want to see how a podcast starts from nothing and hopefully gets better, that's the way to do it. But out with that, and one more comment around previous episodes. We talked about kiwi, how to eat it. There is an alternative way to eat kiwi that is very efficient, and I didn't mention it. So thank you, listeners, for bringing that in. But this is basically take the kiwi, slice it in half, and then spoon it. Bring the spoon in and eat it like a baby. I like this, and it's extremely efficient. The main reason I like it is that I feel the kiwi doesn't expect it. I feel it's a very unexpected way to go about eating the kiwi. So, yes, slice in half and scoop it. That can be the way to go. Now, this episode that is coming, remember how I told you I'm very close to stop listening to the news, to stop reading to the news, to save my mental health? Well, I did the exact opposite. Because someone needs to report, someone needs to bring you the news. I need to suffer like a modern messiah so you can get, I don't know what. Basically, I still keep reading news. Things are not looking great. And today I'm going to bring some of that. So if you don't want to hear how things are going, then you can skip this podcast. This is not going to be a happy podcast, although I always keep it cheerful. I have some random bits and pieces as well around some movies I saw and some new holidays that are coming in Berlin. But all in all, it's a piece around the tech moguls that are running the world these days and a few comments around that. So if you're ready for it, let's buckle up. If not, just lower the volume, just keep those numbers going up for the statistics and keep ironing or running or moving around or whatever beautiful thing you beautiful beings are doing. Okay, long intro. Let's get this started. Starting with something light. I went to see a movie. This is something I want to be doing more. Last year, I didn't see as many movies as I usually do. The title of the movie is All We Imagine as Light, and it's a film that delves into the lives of 3 women in India, in Mumbai, highlighting their resilience amidst challenges. Now, one of the things that drew me to see that movie is the fact that even though it won a lot of awards, it was not promoted in the shortlist for Oscars by India. And this decision has been widely criticized. A lot see it as a missed opportunity for India to showcase a globally acclaimed film at the Oscars. They didn't do it because it doesn't portray exactly the image they would like it to portray. The way that they justified the weird decision is that it's a movie catered for more Western audiences. But I find it similar with the Greek movie Animal that got a lot of awards, and it was not shortlisted for Oscars because actually it talks about the conditions of some Greek workers in a hotel in an island in the high tourist season, which is a very dystopic reality of the Greek miracle of the tourism industry. The conditions are shit. So it wasn't a movie that the Greek government wanted to have in the Oscar shortlist. And now you will say, what does governments have to do with movies that get shortlisted to go to the Oscar committees and such? But there is a connection. There is a Ministry of Culture. There were a lot of things done by the Greek government there to change the structure of the committee that selects the movies and all sorts of things. You can look it up. Point being, All We Imagine as Light was also a movie that was not promoted to Oscars, even though it actually won the Grand Prix award at the Cannes Festival. No Indian film for 30 years had even competed at the Cannes. I say Cannes because that's how we call it in Greek. And the cinematography was really good. They won the second best award of the Cannes. Just to educate, the biggest one is called the Golden Phoenix Award in the Cannes, and the second best award is the Grand Prix. Don't ask me for more. I don't know more than that. So I thought, intriguing, a good movie that the government or state or country didn't want it to go out. Why? So I had a view. It's a solid 7.3, I will say, if you're into IMDb scores. It dramatizes many of the challenges faced by single women living in Mumbai. It underscores their resiliency and also, I would say, their solidarity in a way. I will not say more. 3 nurses, they work at the same hospital. There's a lot of patience involved in the movie. A lot of people found it boring. I went to see the critics on IMDb and it was like either 10s or 6s. So I was a bit in the middle. I did get bored at times, but I found the photography really, really beautiful. And also, it's okay to get bored. If you're watching a long movie, I do not expect to not be bored all the time. I think that's also the point of seeing a movie these days with the reels and the instant gratifications and the constant need for stimulation. I actually think that watching a long movie, it's also good. Life is not about constant thrill and excitement all the time. You need to go through these phases where you just wait for things to happen without looking at your phone. So some people got bored at times. For me, that was okay. Photography was good. Solid 7.3 from me. If you are in Berlin, I saw it in the Neues Off kino. Very, very nice kino. Very old school. Very, how do you call that? Avant-garde inside? I don't know. It looks old fancy. Little bit like the Palace Cinema in Athens that doesn't exist anymore. But that's on the movie side. Now let's go into some more dark topics. America, Trump and Musk and Zuckerberg. There's no way you can escape these types of news these days. Taking a little bit of inspiration from an article written by the infamous Yanis Varoufakis, there is a critical question in 1952 by a Welsh socialist that says, how does the wealth manage to persuade poverty, the poor people, to use its political freedom to actually keep the wealth in power? This is the greatest paradox of the bourgeois democracy. And today, in the era of Elon Musk and the techno-oligarchic fraternity of big tech, it seems that this paradox has taken a shockingly new dimension. Since Donald Trump's second term, the elaborate conspiracy of his emerging brotherhood to maximize wealth and power is saddening and disgusting. Billionaires with a history of sadistic behavior towards their children, mothers, men who eagerly promote authors glorifying torture, profiteers of pocketing billions in government and military contracts while dismantling social programs, offering minimal support to the poor. All these figures have flocked to Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, where they bend the knee, they kiss the ring of their new patron, and they prepare to gain direct access to American state power. This is what is happening these days. And from their perspective, the deal they struck with Trump is a stroke of genius. You spend some millions and you gain billions. For a few $100 million invested in Trump's re-election, they reaped wealth in the hundreds of billions within minutes of victory. For instance, Palantir surged by 23%, while Musk's Tesla stock skyrocketed 40%. Reaching market capitalization rivaling that of the entire global automotive industry combined. In exchange for mere crumbs of electoral support to Trump, this techno-feudal brotherhood stands to receive 3 extraordinary rewards: massive government contracts, unstrained profits from deregulated products with significant public risks, like, autonomous vehicles, unchecked AI robots and drones, alongside consumption of dirty energy. And the last thing, immense bargaining power, sanctioned by the state in dealings with workers, with suppliers, with competitors, and with society at large. And speaking of that, if you've missed it, which I think is impossible, speaking of tech pros and terrible ideas, let's talk about Zuckerberg. The guy just pulled off a 100-degree spin move that would make a figure skater be jealous. He decided to stop fact-checking political ads. He's relocating workers to Texas because this is the recipe these days. If there's one thing Texas needs, it's more tech money and less facts. And in case it wasn't obvious, this is all about pleasing Trump. The fact-checking will be replaced by a community, the same way that Elon Musk did on Twitter, which basically means that the loudest voices are going to be heard. If you have an internet mob behind you that can sway the public opinion without the need to verify things, you can actually get things where you want them without an objectively partial truth. Now, do you remember how Mark Zuckerberg was supposed to fight Elon Musk in a cage? This was proposed a few years ago. Well, it turns out that Musk didn't need a cage to win him, right? Just a lot of ego, because Elon did jump on the Trump train early on. He's there dunking on NASA, playing government influencer, while Zuckerberg had to bend the knee so hard that his spine is in another zip code. So there was no cage match, no epic showdown. It's just two billionaires showing us that in the end, money and power is never enough. And for my dear Berliners still here, or the rest of the techno-loving people, in a desperate attempt of Zuckerberg to seem cool, he reportedly is eyeing the purchase of Berghain, the Berlin's iconic nightclub, the one I visited last week, episode 40, I got into Berghain. Well, now Mark Zuckerberg wants to buy it. Yeah. It's the same Zuckerberg who cannot stop pandering politicians that suppress all sorts of freedom. He now wants to own a place synonymous with techno-rebellion, and you are not on the list. Maybe this is his way of proving that he's not a corporate android. But my comment is, hey, Zuckerberg, you already have your own bunker, remember? You've bought a private island in Hawaii, and you've built everything there, including your own personal bunker. So why buy Berghain? Is it like your backup bunker? Is it your way of saying, I'm still cool? Is this your way of getting a small win over Elon Musk? Because let's face it, this is probably the only club that he would be completely banned from. But these are the latest moves from Mark Zuckerberg, who is dressing like a member of Limp Bizkit back in the 90s, trying desperately to look cool and at the same time rule the world. And just jumping a little bit on Elon Musk and his never-ending quest to be the center of attention, he actually declared that the NASA's moon program Artemis is a distraction. Yeah, the guy who is actually building rockets as part of Artemis mission thinks that the whole thing should be scrapped because Mars is more exciting. That's a bold talk from someone whose Mars fantasy looks more like $1 billion PR stand than an actual plan with practical timelines. Generally, Elon Musk and timelines are two very opposite things. NASA has this plan actually to use the moon as a smart testing ground for the long-term Mars missions, because you cannot just go straight to Mars with no practice. This is how a sci-fi disaster would start. But Musk doesn't do practice. He just does hype. He's riding the hype train. It's not that his rockets took 20 plus attempts to even make it, almost going bankrupt. He's flexing his growing influence in Washington. He just goes left and right and says whatever he wants. And it could be that his actual goal is to make NASA a footnote while SpaceX gets all the glory. Now remember, NASA's program is using some of SpaceX rockets. It's also designing its own rockets. And NASA is also funding Blue Horizon or whatever the third company is that is making rockets, because competition is good. It's good if a lot of people are trying to make rockets, because otherwise you have a monopoly. But let's see how that is going. So far, NASA is moving ahead with the moon and Mars both, because responsible exploration beats one man's vanity project any day. But let's not forget the first private astronaut, commercial astronaut to go in space. I don't remember his name. He paid SpaceX a lot of money and he got up there and he did a tiny spacewalk and then he got back. A billionaire who has now been appointed or is very close. He's the favorable one of Trump to get appointed for NASA. So you can see it's very obvious. You don't need to really look for finding the connections of how things work. We said how Greece's ambassador is the ex-girlfriend of Trump's son, right? The whole problem with this, and we're now the deepest part, okay? We will start resurfacing soon out of this podcast. The main problem in this new oligarchy that we are seeing and has been formed, controlling not only wealth, business, politics, basically trying to have every bit of influence and power in decision making, and all these billionaires jumping on the political train for more power. The problem is this rise of the super weapon, and that refers to the unprecedented influence and resources that these modern tech magnates possess. And that can be, of course, Elon Musk with Twitter, that is Mark Zuckerberg, who controls basically Facebook, Instagram, Threads. This entanglement surpasses the traditional, corporate giants and Wall Street predecessors that had to try and find ways to influence different things. Now, their ability to shape public discourse, to impact economies, to sway political landscapes, it has reached unparalleled heights. And in a way, I think it prompts the debate about the balance of power in total in contemporary society. So, okay, this was the deepest part we got. Let's start resurfacing. One more piece of news. It's just bosses spying on people. Let's start resurfacing with that. There is news circulating that in Germany, companies are increasingly hiring private investigators to monitor employees who are on sick leave, and they are citing the rising absenteeism for that. They even say that economy slowed down 0.3% because people got sick. And instead of looking at taking care of the people who are getting burned out left and right like never before, companies are actually hiring private investigators to check if someone is sick and, throwing a party, and overall raises significant privacy concerns and questions about the employer-employee trust dynamics. I don't think it's super widespread, but absolutely first of them, Elon Musk, the champion of worker rights and privacy, showed the way forward in employee management by making managers do house calls and visits. No wonder why they have stolen so many mugs out of the Tesla factory. If you don't know, this was a huge problem. All the mugs, all the coffee mugs from the Tesla factory in Berlin keep getting stolen and replaced. And this has become such a big problem that they are now addressing it and trying to ask people to stop stealing mugs, as it is becoming a problem. And I say any small act of rebellion in the tiny micro world that everyone lives is more than welcome. Hiring a detective to go see what sick people are doing, nothing says we care than that, right? But this private detective in Germany said that is handling 1.2 thousand cases annually, which is more than double the number he had. And I say, how dare people prioritize their health over the economy? Sneezing on your coworker should be a sign of corporate dedication. So there you have it. Next time you're feeling under the weather, remember your boss might just care enough to send private investigators to check on you. Isn't that sick? Let's keep resurfacing with the next topic. And our next topic is, we're still not at the surface, right? We're still there. But deep sea sabotaging, do you know that's a thing? Do you know it's been happening? Here's the Baltic Sea thriller with some timestamps. In recent months, Baltic Sea has become the stage of a bizarre game of hide and seek between Chinese flagged vessels and Russia's shadow fleet. What is Russia's shadow fleet? Russia got banned from transporting oil and all of that, so all the ships got banned. So now they're using what is called the shadow fleet, which is very old ships that are not so easy to track and are not part of the catalogs and all that. So it's like a parallel fleet for them continuing doing business. Now, what's happening in the Baltic Sea? Undersea cables. Chinese flagged vessels and Russia's shadow fleet, they are cutting cables in the Baltic Sea, allegedly. Don't come knocking on my door. These ships are basically dragging their anchors for miles and miles, like clumsy toddlers with toy trains, and they have been accidentally severing critical communication and power lines. In October 2023, Finland's undersea data cable connecting to Estonia was mysteriously cut. How can you cut a deep-sea cable at the bottom of the Baltic Sea? Finnish officials linked it to a Russian oil tanker. It's called Eagle S. I believe they have seized that by now. And it just happened to be in the area. And it just happened to be dragging its anchor for 60 miles. This is, with some quick math, about 100 kilometers that they kept dragging that anchor until they cut the cable. Just 1 month later of that, November 2023, another cable linking Finland to Sweden suffered similar fate. What are the odds? Well, there's more. In May 2024, Chinese cargo ship was caught on the radar suspiciously circling the region. If you look this up, they did so many circles around that cable. And yeah, after those circles, another cable went dark. By now, it's less of a coincidence and more of a bad sequel. This incidence of sabotage, they are disrupting. It's not just oopsies, in just over a year. They're disrupting everything from internet services to energy supply chains. And yet, when confronted, both Russia and China maintain their finest poker faces. They're like, these allegations are absurd. Beijing claims they have no knowledge of these incidents. It's just some drunk fisherman that, kept doing zigzags and oops, they cut a table. Because nothing says plausible deniability than a ship dragging its anchor halfway to the North Pole. So we're living in this kind of geopolitical gaslighting. There's a lot of power plays happening at the moment, and apparently cutting cables in the Baltic Sea is just one way of adding pressure and saying, hey, I can do some stuff if I want to. So if you didn't know that's happening, it is happening. Let's see how that goes. And I know we've been dragging too long, so I'll only share 2 very short things, and I will say goodbye. The first one, and now we're getting in a bit more fun stuff, is that in case you don't know, there is a poor guy searching a landfill of trash to find 770 million euros. This is almost 1 billion. And this is a pretty fun story. I feel bad for the guy. Basically, this guy, he's an IT engineer from Wales, and he has one hard drive with 8,000 bitcoins. He threw that hard drive in 2013. And ever since, for years and years, as the Bitcoin price is skyrocketing, he has been trying to convince the government to let him search for the hard drive in the landfill where they throw all the trash. The value right now is, as I said, almost 1 billion in that local landfill. And the guy's trying everything. He's saying, I will share those millions with you. I will give them to charities. I will give them to the state. Just give me permission to start searching. And he has been trying that for many, many years. And he's taking the city to court. The news came after years that he was denied permission to search the landfill. When he threw it, a Bitcoin was about $13. At the moment, I think it might be, 70, 80, 90K. And despite offering to fund the excavation, to share the proceeds, they're saying, nope, you cannot go search there. Too many environmental concerns. So his case got dismissed. And I find this crazy because you've all thought that this is a possibility, right? So many people bought Bitcoin back in the day. It stayed dormant. It stayed lost. They forgot passkeys. They forgot passwords. And now even just one Bitcoin could make the life problems go away. I like to imagine that in a cyberpunk type of future, cyberpunk marries Mad Max, there is these stories about people surfing and searching all the trash to harvest hard drives to get some money. It's like trying to find the golden ball in Harry Potter Quidditch game. So I think that would be a cool idea for a comic or something like this. Just a dystopian future where the masses are fully oppressed and poor and dirty and all of that. And the only hope is going in these landfills, searching for hard drives that could give the ticket out there. So all your Bitcoins are in the trash and California is on fire. You know that too. I know we're not resurfacing too much. I only want to say one thing around that. There is a clip resurfacing from 2020 when Donald Trump graced the world with his unparalleled climate expertise. It's like watching a rerun of a comedy show. So I just want to say this part. In 2020, there was a briefing on California wildfires. Trump was there, and he showcased his profound grasp of climatology. And to the claims of the experts around the wildfire problem, he literally looked at them and said, it will start getting cooler. And they were like, what? He said, yeah, it will start getting cooler. You just watch. And the confused scientists told him, sir, I wish science agreed with you. To Trump genuinely replying, the ever insightful, I don't think science knows, actually. Let me see if I can find a clip of that exchange.
Because if we ignore that science and sort of put our head in the sand and think it's all about vegetation management, we're not going to succeed together protecting Californians.
Okay. It'll start getting cooler. You just watch.
I wish science agreed with you.
Well, I don't think science knows, actually.
It's crazy, right? Because who needs decades of peer-reviewed research when you have presidential hunches? So fast forward 2025, it seems that Trump's crystal ball might be a bit foggy. Los Angeles is currently experiencing what's being called a cataclysmic wildfire. And Trump's solution right now is clean the floors, California. He literally said that the problem is just a good sweep and poof, no more fires. But yeah, I could get content forever with these things. So there you have it. From saying, I don't think science knows in 2020 to saying, clean your floors in 2025. This is Trump's climate policy. This is how it's evolving. Good luck to us and the world. As I've said before, first 50 lucky listeners of this podcast can message me and gain a ticket to come live in my village if I ever execute my plan Omega, which is to just go there, shut my eyes, take an old radio that can only play local songs and grow potatoes. And tomatoes, best Greek tomatoes. Now, if you made it this far, I have one good thing going for Berliners. Mark your calendars as there is one new public holiday in May 8, 2025. Berlin is going to get one-off public holiday commemorating 80 years since the Liberation Day. In a tragic irony, this is a special day to remind the importance of peaceful coexistence. Can you even say that without laughing today? So, there you have it. One more day off. Let's plan our time wisely because May 8 actually falls on a Thursday. So you could create a long weekend, taking Friday as a bridge day or even an 11 holiday by combining it with May 1st. So here's a silver lining. Here's one day in the year. So don't miss the chance to take that. And in my ending message of random things, I was boiling an egg. I wanted it hard-boiled. So I asked the smart device I have to help me do a hard-boiled egg. And what it did was that it started playing a song on Spotify called Hard-Boiled Egg. And you would guess, I was so delighted. I thought, that's so freaking smart. Someone has made a song called A Hard-Boiled Egg, only to realize that song had a duration of 2 minutes and 40 seconds. What a disappointment. It's made by a guy called Berghain. He's not known. There are 500 people that know him on Spotify. But I just want to say to him, Berghain, you missed an opportunity to be famous. There is actually a Barilla playlist where every song is the exact number of seconds needed for the different Barilla pasta to boil. If you don't know, you can find that playlist. That's a fun thing to do. But Mr. Berghain playing some country music, how dare you put a song called Hard-Boiled Egg and not have it for the duration of a hard-boiled egg? It's a creepy song about how a hard-boiled egg is now his best friend because he broke up with his girlfriend. And although I appreciate the imagination about loving your hard-boiled egg, because I love my hard-boiled egg as well, I cannot accept the severe lack of understanding of the good you could have done to the world. This is it. Long podcast, new year. Sorry for bringing way too many news, but I'm troubled. I'm troubled with all these things, and this is where I share what's on my mind. You get to be a part of that, and I thank you for that, and I love you for that. And keep being you, keep rolling, keep going at it. Put on some meditation after this because it might have made your brain and blood rise some pressure. For that, I'm sorry. I'm sending you my love on this Sunday. Thanks for joining the Thoughts and Talks, and see you next week. I promise, I really do, even if the world bursts down, I will bring a more balanced podcast with a bit less of dystopian geopolitical tech stuff. It's all into one now. It has all merged into one thing. I don't know even how to call it. And more random things like these hard-boiled eggs. Okay. Ciao.